The information provided on Dr. Tom Roselle Live by Dr. Tom Roselle, D.C., interview guests, show co-hosts, or substitute hosts is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. It is for general information purposes only. Information from this broadcast should not replace the appropriate consultation and examination process by a licensed physician. Always consult your own physician prior to changing any current medical directive or prescription.
Hey everybody, welcome to Dr. Tom Roselle with Ageless Health, or the other way around, Ageless Health with Dr. Tom Roselle. Glad you're here with me. We have a lot of information to go over, and we're going to try to break it up over a period of time. Listen, the one thing that we could ever want to have is a cognitive function that works, right? Your brain starts misfiring as a certain part of your life, or something happens to you, there's trauma. But we're at that time of the year, Christmas time and the holiday season. And, we all know the old songs and so forth. All I want for Christmas is my two front teeth. Well, all I want for Christmas is my memory back. And there's many of you are like that. I want to make sure that, we have the opportunity, we have the capacity, the ability to restore function. Somebody says, well, it's a natural part of aging. Wrong. It's a natural part of time and ignoring things that take place and getting ourselves deeper into a hole. So the other piece is, well, what happens if I'm really going into that Alzheimer's cognitive decline? Well, you don't have to get there. There's ways that are tried and true that show you what to do before you even get to that place. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about what you can do, if you will, to make sure that your brain stays intact. So we're going to talk about steps, if you will, steps of restoring and maintaining memory. You go to the store and you think that you still remember to pick up the 5 items that you were out of, and you get to the store and you remember 2 of them, or maybe it was 3 of them. What was that second and third one? I don't remember. So it happens to all of us if we're really in a busy lifestyle. But more importantly, is it something that is normal because of stress and overdrive, or is it something that is a telltale sign of degeneration and, oh my God, I'm going to lose my mind? So let's talk about the basic steps, if you will, to restore memory loss. And then, by the way, I want you to do this because we're going to talk about something called hydrogen water later on as we get through the process here. And if you want to find out what can restore hydrogen water, go to drtomroselle.com and go to the Ageless Health Store. There's some interesting things that we've handpicked for you, and just check them out. See what you think. Let me know. Anyway, steps to restoring memory loss, if you will, are pretty straightforward. And a lot of us would say, well, that's common sense. Then I'll challenge you to simply do this. How many of you actually do them? So one of the primary things to restore memory loss is physical activity. Get your butt outside. Go do something. You want to increase that blood supply to the brain. You want to help get rid of the toxins. The brain has a toxic removal system. It's called a lymphatic toxic waste removal system, lymphatic system. So if you don't have enough physical activity, if you don't have enough water in your system, you can't get rid of the toxins. So you set up this inflammation, this inflammatory reaction that causes your body to start misfiring. And unfortunately, one of the things that is directed immediately is your memory, your mental recall. So let's make sure that we do that. Let's get active. Okay. The second thing that I want you to be aware of is stay mentally active, not just physically active, but mentally active. Learn new skill sets, and even try to learn a language. Even if you're in your 70s, you're in your 60s, you're in your 80s. Why not? What else you got to do? Give it a shot. Do something that is different and stimulate your body's capacity to improve its recognition of all kinds of things. And words are symbols. That's all they are. It's like a stop sign. You see the stop sign, you see the outline of the stop sign, and what do you think? Stop. It doesn't even have to have a stop on it. But it's the same thing with your brain. The more pieces of that puzzle that you put in to that brain, the faster it works, the quicker it recognizes information, the less it drops things out. How many of us today, having gone through COVID and so forth, we don't want to go out anymore. We don't want to talk to anybody anymore. It's like our social skill sets have declined. Well, here, let me tell you something about social skill sets. If you don't engage with people, if you don't get out and spend time with others, if you will, that interaction that normally existed for all of us from the time we were really young to the time that we grew older, that helped actually do what? Reduce stress. Now we overreact. We want to hurt somebody instead of just talking to them. We were kidding around the other day when two guys got into an argument when we were in our teens or even late teens. We probably went out and had a fist fight, and then we were friends for the rest of our lives. Today, it doesn't work that way. We yell and we scream, and then we get aggravated, and then we separate ourselves from people. We don't want to see anyone anymore. We can't accept their positions, I think. But let me tell you what happens with that. In the mind itself, I'm going to use the metaphor. You dig grooves that are deeper and deeper, and it's a reactive pattern. It's not a thought process. And then pretty soon, you don't know how to do it. You do one of two things. You either isolate yourself from the world and you don't go anywhere, or when you go out, you're going to try to figure out how to impair, do damage, harm, maybe to another human being, which is not okay. And we're seeing way too much of that in today's world. So we have to make sure that we do those things that allow us to interact, accept, and realize that our thought process may not be the only one that's out there, and accept other people for the way their position is and not hate them. I had a patient of mine the other day that came in and was crying and said that, because they align themselves politically in one camp, meaning they were Make America Great Again people and Make America Healthy Again. That's why they come into my office. But their family disinvited them for Thanksgiving. They disinvited them. Oh my God, how does that make you feel just hearing about that? And God forbid it happens to any one of us. But when that takes place, it shifts everything. It shifts your neurochemistry in your body. And then you get into this, this pullback. But people are doing that all the time. So their reaction of distancing you, pushing you away, dissing you, if you will, now makes you go into a lousy place and you begin to shut off things. What does that have to do with memory? Well, that piece of being able to spend time with others, to be able to contribute to a group, to a social setting, is critical in maintaining your body's ability to hold on to data, willingness to explore different options, and so forth. How about organization? Have you ever walked into your office? Are you a hoarder? You got stuff all over the place. You got stacked on top of stacks and top of stacks. Some people, if you're watching me right now and you're looking behind me, I've got a desk full of things. But those are just those things I have to get done today. Now, all of those will go away at the end of the day. They get filed, they get put down, and it begins to look organized. You can't think properly. You can't organize anything unless your environment is organized. So stay organized. Keep your workplace and your home place totally together, right? How about getting enough sleep? How many of you actually sleep well? You go to bed, you sleep in a cool room, you close your eyes, and you're out. If you disrupt that circadian pathway, that circadian rhythm, that ability to close your eyes, sleep deep, and so forth, for any reason. And by the way, most of you don't sleep because you're eating the wrong things. Most of you don't sleep because you're stressed out like crazy. You're listening to the talking heads. You think that everything that's being said around you is gospel, and it's not. But we buy into it. So let's get that circadian rhythm back. Sometimes you have to take some vitamin B complex. Sometimes you have to do a little melatonin. Sometimes, you have to just get some exercise on a regular basis, but also eating properly. If you don't eat well, then your inflammatory levels get high. Remember, inflammation is acid, and it causes the body to misfire on an ongoing basis continually, but we don't realize it. We just don't get it. Listen, I want to encourage you, and I want you to know that we're on the 17th of this month at 6 p.m. at the Roselle Center in Fairfax, Virginia. If you're in our area, join us, but you got to register for this class. What are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about early onset of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. But we're going to give you the capacity, the opportunity. Last episode, I had Dr. Scott Lamp on with me. Scott and I will be going back and forth and giving you the intimacies of what really happens, what the blood studies show, what you can do to reverse it, what you can take action steps on. And that's the important part. It's not us doing it to you. It's you becoming a partner in your own health and restoring normal function. In this case, wouldn't it be great for the Christmas holidays to start seeing some changes? And by the way, you could do it that quickly. You're not going to get 100%. I'm not here to tell you that because you'd be saying, Dr. Tom, you're kind of over on the edge this time. But I can tell you that over time, you re-implement, it's going to be a very different story. December 17th, 6 p.m. It's a Wednesday evening at the Roselle Center in Fairfax, Virginia. We're right off the National Capital Beltway. Give us a call. You can call the office directly at 703-698-7117 and register for the class. You can do it online at drtomroselle.com and make sure it happens. Give us a way to contact you so we confirm, and something happens, God forbid, that we can't do the class, we can get back to you. But it's important that you have the tools. And trust me, we're going to get in deep into the weeds on this thing. And those of you who heard Dr. Scott last week, he's a brilliant, brilliant doctor. He knows his stuff inside out, backwards, upside down, if you will. And we're going to tag team. And we have a lot of fun when we do that. I learn from him. He learns from me. You're going to learn from all of us. And I promise you, you take the action steps that you should be taking, and life as you know it will get a whole lot better very, very rapidly, very quickly. So what does that mean? That means pay attention, please, because we're going to give you all kinds of things to change, shift, and make a huge difference in your life. So let's continue the process. What else can you do to make sure that you're not falling apart, right? What are the action steps that you need to do? So we talked about sleep, right? Make sure that you're sleeping. Don't take that flippantly. There's some people that only do 4 hours, 4.5, 5 hours, and they think it's enough. I was a criminal at that for many years. 5.5 hours. I thought, man, that was a pretty good night. I got, I go to sleep, I pass out, I'm done. But if you don't find opportunity outside of that to recover, to rest, to stay put, it doesn't matter. You begin to see slow deterioration of processes. And the one we're talking about, the memory process, that goes first. Obviously, if you don't exercise, you're going to lose muscle mass. If you don't eat well, you're not going to have health. But when it comes to the brain, it has to have rest and restoration and improvement based on normal functional capacity. So get sleep, same time, every night, cold room. What do I mean? About 65 degrees, black room, no lights coming in. And you'll find just doing that, it'll go longer, and you'll probably want to sleep longer too. Yeah, you're probably going to sleep longer. So how about cognitive training? What do I mean by cognitive training? Well, there's all kinds of good applications that you can stimulate brain function. And if you know what to do with them, you can begin to shift virtually anything. What do I mean? So learn a language. We talked about that a little bit. Now there's, you have things like Babbel and other apps out there. They're great. Learn something different. And if you really see that you're starting to decline and that there's problems that are not really remediable, you better see somebody like us and learn that there are things out there that are called neurotransmitters that may be way off, that are due to stress patterns or other exposures, pollutions, additives, things that you're putting in your body on an ongoing basis. When you have the opportunity, if you really thought that the best Christmas gift that you could possibly have is restoration of your memory, why would you not want to grab a hold of that? And we're talking about just some of the things that we talked about right now can make a huge difference for most of us. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about the artificial stuff that goes into McDonald's foods. I mean, many of you go back in the day, they took a McDonald's hamburger and French fries, and they didn't open it for a couple of years. And except for a little shrinkage, there was nothing deteriorating in that hamburger and those French fries. Nothing. Why? Because of the things that they put into it, and those things go into you. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to deteriorate. It means that your body's not going to work. But there's everything from things like lighter fluid types of chemistries that go into that. It's not the best choice qualitatively. And it's not just McDonald's, it's tons of other fast food grab and go type of applications. You have to be careful. You have to take responsibility. So if you're not going to step up to the plate and say, hey, I'm partially responsible for this. I came back from Italy this last spring, and I was teaching there for a week, and it was very interesting. I never touch breads for the most part in this country. Once in a great while, if I'm going to a really good Sicilian restaurant, I'll get a little bit of a homemade bread if I know the owners and so forth, because they import their grain. But other than that, I really don't touch it. And that's just to get the olive oil off the dish and make sure that I can get it into my mouth. But here's the deal. When I went to Italy, I went to this little restaurant. I was in Naples teaching, and I walked down the street, and there was this place that looked like a cave, but it was actually a restaurant. The guy came out, and we started talking, my very bad Italian, but the guy fortunately knew quite a bit of English. And he said, "Are you hungry?" I said, "Yes." He said, "What do you want?" And it's a pasta and pizza and that type of place. He said, I told him, I said, "I haven't had a pizza in 25 years. He looked at me and says, "What?" I said, "Yeah, 25 years. And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because I live in the United States and the food there is terrible." And he started laughing. He had spent a lot of time in good old US of A. And he said, "Yeah, you're right." He says, the food is horrible there. And I said, "The grain here is very different." He said, "There's no comparison." He said, it doesn't have all the garbage that you put in your food." And he said, "Do you want a pizza?" I said, "I'd love a pizza." So I had this really, really thin pizza crust. And because I'm first generation Sicilian, he made me a Sicilian pizza. What was that? The best crushed tomatoes you can think of, the best buffalo mozzarella cheese that it just melted in your mouth. And then he put eggplant, and it was perfectly spiced. And I had a glass of his house homemade wine, and I had that pizza. And guess what happened? I ate the whole thing. I ate everything, and I didn't have one bloat in my body. So that's the difference between the garbage that we eat in this country and causing all kinds of problems. Don't forget, coming up Wednesday, December 17th, 6 p.m. at the Roselle Center for Healing. If you're in the Fairfax, Virginia area, join us. I'd love to meet you, number one, and answer any questions that you have, even outside this dementia condition, if you will, that we're talking about. Nobody wants to have dementia. Nobody wants to have a problem. But listen, it's an opportunity. And I promise you, you will go home with a thought process that said, oh, I can get me back. Yes, you can get you back. Very rare situations that you can at least blunt the situation without the drugs, without the, God forbid you get into Alzheimer's, they give you air stuff. That stuff doesn't work anyway. Look up the literature. It does not work. It doesn't work. And, they think it does. It may put the brakes on it a little bit in progression. It does not reverse it. And even putting the brakes on it, it's not that effective. But it's called standard of care. That's what's being used. Make sure that you understand that. So what are we going to do? We're going to get some exercise. We're going to sleep properly. We're going to do what? We're going to eat the way we should eat. We're going to get fresh foods. We're going to learn something. We're going to challenge our minds. We're going to get into normal habits. We're going to organize our environment. We're going to make sure that, these things that I have sitting on my desk get put away, your desk as well at home. So we have to make sure that we become responsible. And if we're not responsible, then life gets very, very curious in that we don't know ourselves anymore. But I'm here to give you the information that you need to have and make things much, much better for all of us as we go through. Don't forget, you can still find copies of my original book, Ageless Health. Health is a do-it-yourself program. And you can get it on audio version. You can, get it on download. There's all kinds of ways of doing that. But it's my manual to you. It's my manual to get you to understand how you walk through the puzzle called your life, your health, and to be able to change things exponentially. We're going to, coming up in more information. If you want to hear the rest of this podcast, by the way, the rest of this show, go to drtomroselle.com and you'll have the full version of this and other programs. And we hope that you'll do that. And if there's anything that you want me to cover, is there any information that you want me to put together for you, simply do this. Reach out, go to drtomroselle.com and ask the question. I'll answer it on the air and I'll answer you directly as well. Because why? Because you deserve the information. We're going to get ready to shift into another piece of this program. We're going to start talking about some of the things that you can do biochemically, nutritionally, some of the things that you have to be aware of, identification of pulsar and scalar frequencies and how they affect the brain. You're going to find that very fascinating because you can reprogram the brain. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle, Ageless Health, and we'll be back in a moment. Go to Dr. Tom Roselle and get more data, more information. We'll see you in a couple.